Hello, my love.
Good morning to
Good
you.
good morning. I love that we get to do this. Rowan's in the house and I'm sitting on the back deck. And we kind of wanted to show up today and talk about our trip to Western North Carolina. Those lands mean a lot to us. The community is in our hearts. And I think it's just a good idea, right, babe? Let's just talk about our story. Like, you lived in Asheville for over 20 years.
Yeah, yeah. So I moved to Asheville right before 9/11. And, um, just remember like sitting on the couch that morning and being in a new place, in a new town with like this wild new experience happening. And I don't really have any friends there yet. But even though we were so far away from New York, it was like the energy of Asheville changed that morning, and people were coming together just like they were in the city, hearing stories of what was going on in the city. It was like people were meeting in bookstores and coffee shops and hugging each other and talking. And there's so many people that live in North Carolina and in Western North Carolina that are from upstate New York and, up north. So it was really wild to feel like I was already being hugged by a community of people that came together over a really hard thing, right? A terrible, hard thing. And this brought up a lot of that for me, being surrounded by people that we love, and also being with Dawn, who was a New York um, police person during 9/11.
Yeah.
And she joined us on this adventure. I hesitate to say adventure, but it was really special to have her there because it kind of tied that together. It was in a weird way, but anyways, that's not part of the story we're talking about today. But it was just that was my first experience of really feeling what community felt like. I was young, very young, in my early 20s, and just trying to figure out life, and learning how to live in community and how to support others was new to me. And I'll never forget that. That was just like the first piece that I wanted to touch on was like I lived there for almost 25 years. So
Yep,
yeah.
yep. And we were booked to go back on October 7th because
Yeah.
we are looking for land to move back to the mountains because it's always our home, no matter where we live. Like those mountains all around Asheville, that's always
Yeah.
going to be our home.
Yeah, there's nothing quite like feeling that, right? Like I feel that sense of home from
Yep.
that area more than I have anywhere else. Even homes that I've actually had, and home where I grew up, and the home of my ancestors. I feel really connected to that land too. But there is something so special about feeling embraced, and I love that. Every time, especially this time, but every time we ever go back, we both start crying at the same time when we're coming up around the corner of 26, and you start to see the mountains, and we both always get tears in our eyes when we see that. It's just our
Yep.
hearts fill with love.
And it's amazing because, we talk about how many supplies showed up in Western North Carolina from people all over the United States, Canada, and they have so many supplies because I think that our stories, and like for me, like the first time I drove to Western North Carolina from New Jersey, and again, it was like friends and family were like, you need to move to Asheville. Everyone there is like you, like just very loving, spiritual, and just wanting and desiring to be in community, however that looks like, right? And I think everyone feels that way because one of our experiences of going there is like, the Ingalls and Black Mountain, like they have so many supplies that they want people to come and stock up. So please, if you live in the area, go to the drop off supply places because so many people brought diapers, like any kind of supplies that you need, like definitely stock up, right? It's okay to like prep in a sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's something so special about the culture there of like giving, and everyone there, you know, prior to this, I worked there in every back road and holler of Western North Carolina, the 30 counties west of Charlotte for 10 years. And there was always a common theme, no matter who I was going to see. I worked as the deafblind specialist, so I would go into people's homes and outfit them with technology and supports around vision and hearing loss. And it was always like, come on in. What would you like? How can I serve you? And that's like the culture there is always of giving. And so oftentimes, and we encountered this so many times when we were there just, a couple of weeks ago, last week, people are like, no, I'm good. I'm good. I have my house. I'm okay. Or, my neighbors got swept away. I'm okay. And I don't need anything. And it's like, it's so hard to talk about, right? Because it's like, you just want people to feel taken care of and know that like it's going to be okay. And I can't guarantee that, right? Like there's so many things around um how like how does this, you see it happening like in just 3 weeks they've recovered a lot, but how is it ever going to be okay? And then you see people saying like, no, I don't need anything, I'm okay, I have what I need. But then like if you project down the road a little bit, you can see that there's going to be really hard times financially. And if there's a young family out there that maybe doesn't need diapers today, but they might need them in a year. And with the economy so uncertain, like take the diapers, like
Yeah.
project into the future. Like if your baby's going to need diapers next year, like take the bigger sizes.
Yeah.
There's so much there to help everyone for ages, for a while. And if you have the space to store it, or you have a neighbor with a shed or a garage or something, like take the stuff, because the culture there is like so selfless. And I worry that a lot of the donations and things that have been given will end up in some warehouse somewhere someday, and
Right.
or worse, in the garbage.
Right.
And I just
Yeah.
hope people are taking everything that they could possibly need. Even the donations. I mean, I've been seeing things, I'm sure we all have online, of like brand new everything. It's there was a whole post I read about donating with dignity, and it's like things that they're donating. The things that they're receiving from donations are like brand new boots and brand new coats and brand new. It's giving dignity to the people that need these things, and not cleaning out your closet of old things that you don't want anymore and just like dumping them off somewhere, but like actually giving things that they really need. So the donations are there for everyone, and it's just a really, it's just wild. It's wild, right? I lose my words because
I know. I know. And you guys, like, so Rowan and I have been talking about doing this podcast now for what, babe, over a week we've been home.
at
All the
least.
days seem to be blurred together. And it's like we're still processing. It's like we've seen beauty beyond words, but we've also seen devastation beyond words. So it's hard to process that and to come together, especially loving so many people, loving that land. Like we're all traumatized from this, right? And like that's why I'm like, let's just show up and be authentically ourselves, right?
It's really hard to talk about it.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. So let's just kind of like take ourselves out and let's talk about some of these awesome people and some of these stories. Cause like what Rowan and I wanted to do, so many times you hear things, look, I'm going to donate money to the Red Cross, or I'm going to donate money to X, Y, and Z. And we never know if the supplies get there. Rowan and I both have a master's degree in counseling. Rowan is a board certified holistic health coach. She has a significant background in crisis response. I started my career off, not too many people know this, but I was a mental health advocate for mentally ill chemical abusers. So in a crisis situation, Roa and I can show up and we can create space, right, babe, for people to be seen and heard, listening to everyone's stories, because every single person has a different story. So it's kind of like people are like, well, what's true? All of it is. All of it
Right.
is true, right? So, but the one story that I wanted to start off with, because you know, so we're packing up our truck. We have a small Honda Ridgeline truck, right? And we like the Flagler Beach community here. They were amazing. Kevin did a
Amazing.
fundraiser for us. Natasha and Randy and Patty and all the people in Hodalon.me, like we raised funds. We awesome, awesome shout out. Right? We have such a beautiful community. But then, right before we left, now we're getting hit by a hurricane. We knew we were going to have mandatory evacuation. So we got to get the stuff, some of the stuff out of the truck to put our stuff in, right? So we have a bug out bag, we have our safe, we have like things that, like Ro and I are really attached to our bedding, like just certain things. If we lost our house, like these are the 5 things we want, right? So, so we hustled out of here, and on the way to Black Mountain, right, we get our Dawn, our friend who's a retired police officer in New York, right? She gets a phone call from the Old Fort Skyland Retreat campground, right? And the woman calls, she's got to be what, babe? Like, she reminds me so much of my Aunt Mary. She's just really little, petite, like maybe like 70s ish,
It's so full of energy. Like
so
you can't
full.
even imagine that much energy coming out of a tiny person like that.
Right? So she calls Dawn. And meanwhile, we've been calling every day. We're calling. We couldn't talk to our friends. We couldn't talk to the nice lady at the retreat center. We couldn't get in touch with the Airbnb. Like, we got in touch with some of our friends, but we haven't heard from everyone. And that was what, like almost a week. People are still
Yeah.
not communicating with the outside world. So anyway, so we get a phone call. Dawn gets a phone call from the woman. Her name is Deb. And she was like, girls, are you still coming? And Dawn's immediate reaction was like, oh my God, you're okay. You're okay. Like, we've been calling you. We're on our way. We're bringing supplies. What do you need? And she was like, I could really use some diesel and some bug spray, right? So we stopped off in Columbia, South Carolina, got the diesel, got the bug spray. We loaded up because now we have Dawn's bus, right? Dawn's got this big, she bought our shuttle bus, and we loaded it up with supplies. And we're like, we'll see you tomorrow or the next day. So when we showed up in Old Fort, which is one of, the more devastated areas, that was the town Roa and I are looking to move to. Devastating. But when you actually get to the campground, you saw that the campground was okay. And this woman comes up, and we had an amazing conversation with her. We were eating almond butter sandwiches and jelly sandwiches, right? We brought supplies, right? We're not taking anyone's resources. It was really important for us, right? So we showed up with a ton of stuff, and we were self-reliant. So so anyway, we show up, and she takes the diesel, and we're listening to her story. So by the end of the story, this woman, and these are these people, like it's so funny. Like I grew up in Rockland County, New York. It's like New City, New York is ranked the top 10 most snobbiest towns to live in, right? Probably in the United States, but I think this was just a New York thing. So a lot of it is materialism, capitalism. I've struggled with this my whole life, right? Having money is a good thing, but put people first. And that's what these Western North Carolina people do, right? And what does
Totally.
this woman do? You girls drove here from Florida to bring us supplies. You can live here indefinitely on this camp. I'll sell you a piece of my property that overlooks Mount Mitchell because you girls drove, you showed up for our community. And no, that's the type of people they want. there,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, and again, that's one story, right? What's the other story about FEMA? So when this first thing happened, no one was there. The Cajun Navy showed up, the guy with his mules, right? Bringing supplies with mules to the people. Like, it's insane, the stories, right? So when FEMA shows up, what's going on in Asheville, Black Mountain, Weaverville, Burnsville, Spruce Pine, every single town, Black Mountain, you name it, every single member of the community is there organizing, getting supplies, connecting with people, clearing the roads, and they share the resources. This was a struggle for you and me, babe, when we moved to Florida. When we lived on Branning Street, we called ourselves the Branning Bunch, right? At night on Friday, we'd plug in the light and we would scream, "Cafe open," and everyone would. We shared resources. We shared the chickens. We shared our lawnmower, right? I
Yeah.
mean, we would just have Brody, our neighbor, walk over. He doesn't knock on our door.
Yeah.
And he would just come over, walk in the backyard, go into the crawl space and get the lawnmower. And everybody shared the lawnmower. And it's not, and it's like until you experience that and you can break away from that society driven, like, well, I have this, right? There's none of that. And it's
Mm.
love, and
Yeah.
it's so
Yeah.
beautiful. Like, I don't care who you vote for, come in.
Yeah.
Christine, right? She's got a sign. Her boyfriend has a sign on his apartment in downtown Asheville. If you're hungry, if you're thirsty, come on in.
Yeah.
I mean, I just, the stories can go like on, and I know I'm going
Yeah.
all over the place, but I don't want to
No, it's,
cry
I know
anymore.
the
I don't want to
stories are,
cry anymore.
well, it's hard not to, but the stories are what makes this so spectacular, right? Like the resiliency, the love,
Right.
the community, the coming together, the nonpartisan, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like people are helping each other and loving each other truly in the way that they best know how and with what resources they do have. And I was talking with a friend yesterday on the phone and she's like, that in retrospect though, like we've been doing this for decades. Of course FEMA is surprised. Like they showed up to a place that is already for 20, 30, however long we lived there, been practicing this. Like we had clothing swaps in each other's living rooms on a Friday night with like herbal teas and tinctures. And, that reminds me of one of the setups in Marshall, Nanostead. And, they're kind of home base to all of the volunteers that are helping to clean up Marshall. And not only do they have food and resources and water and shelters and things for the people, and the volunteers, but they also have like a spa. Like they understand the need for body work and massage and, tinctures and supplements and things that are going to help everyone stay healthy. So they've got like, come here, get your regular resources, but don't forget about your mental and your physical health. And like, let's give you a massage. Like, let's have, so we've been doing that. Like that's already been in the works for years and years and years. And there's no community I can think of that would, or that I know of, maybe there is one out there, but like the instant reaction that I had was, oh, I'll offer what I know to do to support people, and that's be supportive through sound healing and mental health support. And there's a whole website that's up already now
Yeah.
with like hundreds of practitioners that are offering free counseling, free sound healing, free Reiki, free everything, free, just to support the community's mental health. And, that's the sign of a really strong community where it's not just water. Everybody needs the water and they're making sure everyone's getting the water, but like there is a deep, profound connection to like whole body wellness, complete wellness in that community. And it's really special. Yeah. And something else I was going to mention too is like, not only did we do clothing swaps out of each other's living rooms for years, like that was a really fun Friday night, like we get together and share good clothes or even like woo woo stuff, like, ooh, I have this crystal and I can trade this crystal for that drum, or, like we would just trade beautiful things. And we kind of already knew how to do that, right? Like,
Right. And it reminds me too, like just another story, because we were friends with everybody on Branding Street and we had a fig tree, serviceberry trees. We tried to grow some tomatoes, and like the rare occasion that they flourished, people walking down the street would look at the garden and we'd be like, take a tomato, take some berries. Tegan, right, one of the kids in the neighborhood, she
mhm.
would come over and hang with her friends from the trees, eating the berries. The first time I moved to Florida, right, with you, honey, and we're at my aunt's house, and you're walking the dog, and my aunt is like levitating because you're on the neighbor's backyard. And I'm like, what? You
Right.
can't walk on your neighbor's yard?
Yep.
It's like mine. This is me. And
Yes.
it's very different. And it's like, again, I think that as messed up as this whole situation is with Western North Carolina, for people to open their hearts and feel the love is so healing. And the world is so chaotic, to have the love and to have the healing. And our friends who are healers, how are they responding? They gathered in group, in community, praying, chanting from 9 to 11 o'clock every single day.
Yeah.
And they were doing it while the hurricane, to lessen the hurricane. And people were doing this, I believe, all around the world,
Yeah.
and it's just like, this is the stuff that we need, like no matter what your belief system is, no matter, what your faith is, it's all based on love and opening our hearts up on such a different level. Like it was such a profound experience.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like there's so much like, you see a lot of like, this is misinformation or disinformation, and this is true and this isn't true. And, there's still a lot of that too. And our perspective is like, to some extent, everything is true and nothing is true, right? We have a couple of friends who applied for the 750 from FEMA and got denied. And then we have another friend, FEMA shows up, looks in her basement, catastrophic damage, replaced her hot water heater, replaced her HVAC system, boom, like that, 3 days.
Yeah.
It wasn't even dried out yet, and she had brand new stuff in there. So, it's all true. And everyone's perspective, everyone's experience is unique. And I think, speaking of love, like what we have to come back to is really to remember that, like, every single person was affected by this, and how they interpret it and how they are experiencing this is unique to them. And we have to like hold everyone in that safe space of love. And, each person's experience is going to be different. Some people lost everything, including loved ones, including their lives.
Yeah.
Some people, their gardens look like a
Yeah.
Tuesday afternoon in June. Like, it was so bizarre. You walk through these neighborhoods and it's like there's trees down and lines down and roads collapsed. And then the next street over, there's flowers and vegetables growing still, and like no limbs down. And you just think, like, what parallel universe is this? Like, what
Right.
is going on here? Yeah. So it's, the devastation is immense and everyone is affected in a different way. And yeah, it's just, as we kind of move forward, I just want to keep reminding myself too that like everyone's story is unique to them. And we could get caught up in the like, that's conspiracy theory, or that's not true, or that is true, or we don't know.
Right.
First of all, we don't know. And it's all true. And none of it is true.
Yeah. It's
Just depends on who you
and that
are.
is so true.
And that is the truth.
But so let's talk about a little bit with your dad, like speaking like
Yeah.
what is true, what is not true. Because so Rowan's dad is retired. He lives in this beautiful apartment. It's called Givens Gerber Village. It's in South Asheville. And everyone there is obviously retired. So Givens was great because there was no internet, there was no way, there was no cell phone service. Givens was able to make a statement. Everybody is accounted for, everybody is safe. That
Yeah.
was amazing to put us at ease, right? Because we did not hear from your dad.
Right.
And knowing your dad, he might have been like wandering around wanting to check out the scene, which was not a good thing. Thank God he didn't do that.
Right.
So, but Givens came out with the release of how many loved ones are missing just from that one company. Do you want to share that or do you want me?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So there's about 800 employees at Gibbons. 6 family members are lost their lives. 11 lost their homes, and more than 20 are living in damaged homes. So that's 37 people out of 800. So when they say that 200 people have passed, we know for a fact that's a lie. They're misrepresenting the numbers, right? Our doctor has seen probably over 200 people at this point. So FEMA always misrepresents the numbers until much later, right? Your friend used to
Yeah.
work at FEMA and she kind of like let us know.
Yeah.
But just
Yeah. I mean, part of that too is that, there's a gross misrepresentation of numbers and people get really fixed on the numbers, but like,
yeah,
we have to remember like these are human lives and souls that have departed, and talking about it in such a like it's hard to talk about, right? And then when we do talk about it, like having grace around how we talk about it, because people want to know numbers and they can't release a number of people until they're identified, which is becoming increasingly harder for obvious reasons. And I think with Katrina, they said they didn't have a final count until over a year later. And, this may be similar to that. And, details aside, like there may never be a final count, right? Like
it's true.
there's a lot of mud, there's a lot of debris, there's a lot of very fast moving water, and there's a lot of missing people.
Yeah. And it was like shocking to see. So you have like a little like trickle of a creek, maybe this wide, that turned into like a level 5, like rapid, I think it's really important for us to like understand, because I think like especially like not living in the area, to continuously touch base with the churches and the people that are like really pulling everything together to show support. They need wells, right? I think there was a bunch of people that showed up and dug a well on the church's property to get the community water.
Yeah.
And again, for us to learn, how can we become more independent and self-reliant? Because we kind of make a joke, like, what's the scariest thing that can happen? Is the government knocks on your door and says, hi, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. And they did help, and they didn't help, and they didn't help in a big way. And for some people, they did help in a big way,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of questions that I feel should be answered for everybody. We pay taxes, we have an army. We needed our army. We needed our army immediately, as soon as it was safe, as soon as those rapids went down to the trickle. Where was our army? They have the tanks. They have everything that they need. The drones. I'm in IT. We have probably millions of drones. Where were they? It's just questions that are probably going to always remain unanswered, but such an amazing learning experience to be like, how important is a well? How important is we need to test our water? Do we have like a testing on hand? How about a handheld pump, which our doctor has? And she is so prepped that she can spend all her time taking care.
Yeah.
Not that that's the healthiest thing to do because we need both, we need the balance, but it's hard not to just show up and help, right?
Yeah, especially when your own needs are met, right?
Yeah,
She's an incredible prepper. She's got, pantry full of food and all kinds of things that she had prepared before, but that kind of lends itself to another really important thing is when you lose everything, you could prep all day long, you can be prepared for something, but you can't prepare for what it is that's coming. You might
right.
not know what's coming, right? So you can have food, water, gold, cash, backup gasoline and generators and all the things that we encourage people to have all the time. But if your house gets swept away by a mudslide and you leave with your life, none of that matters. None of that is even accessible, but it doesn't matter. You know what matters the most of all of it is community.
Yeah.
Who are your people? Who are you going to lean on when you have nothing and cash in your pocket, which, a lot of people couldn't prepare for something like this. Like you didn't have time to prepare. So if you didn't have cash in your pocket when you were getting to where you needed to be, you needed your people.
You need your people, you needed
Mhm.
your people. And like, even like being there for 4 days, we didn't think about crypto or Bitcoin, it was just about love and like waking up in the morning and going where we were needed, which
Yeah,
was like super cool. But
yeah. Getting up
yeah,
every morning and having, you know, purpose and a place to go and share our love and share our light and be of service and however we were needed. Um, you know, we got to cry with people, we got to laugh with people, we got to see things that were so hard to see, but we got to see resiliency and like compassion and in ways that I don't think most of us ever will. Like, it was a very unique experience, just so
so
many
many
layers of
layers.
emotions and triumphs and the stories of like, yes, the friend of ours there, his best friend like was living in a 200-year-old house that got like washed away while he was in it and he got out with his dog, and then he has this like triumphant story with his dog, and in the moment of course it was like tragic and scary and horrible, but the way he tells this story of like he had to cross over like fallen trees over this like raging rapid and the dog froze halfway and was like, I don't know if I can get across this bridge, and he grabs the dog by the nape of her neck and like throws her across and they walk like 13 miles and like, I mean, stories of survival, like and triumph, and it's all true,
Yeah,
right? Like there's this triumph, there's deep loss and grief, there's all of it.
all of it.
Yeah, and feeling that all at once is like very weepy. Like I get very emotional, but I also get like, wow, like I'm laughing one minute and then I'm crying another minute, and I'm like, oh, I want to be there and hug everyone so much. And then like, we're dealing with our own stuff here and trying to clean up from this hurricane, and like there's so many things that we can learn from this, that we could take from this experience. Like just one small thing was like we came home from that and I was walking the dog in our neighborhood and I walked past one of our neighbors and he was dragging all of his debris and downed trees, and he must have been like in his 80s and he was alone dragging all that stuff, and having just come from where there's community, like not one person, hopefully, I mean not that we know of, carried a tree alone, and we come here and it's like an 80-year-old man is dragging all of his limbs and debris alone. And of course, I like threw the leash over the tree limb and helped him while the dog just stood there in the grass and waited. But like, we have to help each other. It's like, it's impossible not to.
Yeah,
So I hope that we all kind of can come away from this, whether we experienced it firsthand or indirectly or directly, or, we're all aware that it's happening, but that we don't ever forget
right.
the what can come from this, and that's that we can really truly live a different life, have a different world, where we care about each other more.
Yeah, and I love like the vision that some of the community members around that area have. Like how can we rebuild and make this better? You know,
Yeah,
it's so beautiful and it's so awesome. And
yeah,
and you're right, like, just to get back to like we're moving into like a digital economy, and it's such a huge mistake not to have cash. Going through
yeah,
something like that where cash all of a sudden became king, um, everything else was worthless. You
yeah,
needed cash to get gas, you needed cash to get water, at least in those initial, you know,
yeah.
couple days.
Well, and that brings up another thing about that, the community there is really diverse. There's a lot of poverty, there's a lot of wealth. And cash, we showed up with cash just to help people that needed it. And know we didn't donate it to a large organization, right? We went to gas stations. We went to this gas station in Old Fort and we just pulled up and we got out of the car. And right as we got out of the car, we met this woman, and just such a beautiful soul, such a kind and beautiful person. And she had tears in her eyes. And we asked her if she needed anything. We had a truck full of supplies. And of course, her first response was no. Um, so we just, asked if we could talk with her, and I offered her a hug and she was glad to take a hug. And so we shared a hug. And then she said, I don't need anything. I live in Chimney Rock, which, we all know what happened in Chimney Rock. And she lives in a house that wasn't, taken with the river, but her town is gone. Her community, the center of her town is gone. So what this woman must have been going through in that moment, we have no idea, right? She works at a gas station, and we just stood with her and like so selfless and so kind. And she just said, I don't need anything, but my coworker needs diapers and Pedialyte. His baby is sick. And we didn't, you need cash, right? Everybody needs cash. But a lot of people are living paycheck to paycheck, and maybe they don't even have the cash to have the cash, right? Like maybe they don't have the cash, literally. And we don't know, like we don't know this person's situation, but we heard a need. So what do? We like run to the grocery store, we buy Pedialyte and diapers of, all of the things that we could get for this man, and we drop them off. And his response not only was shock, like you could tell he was just in shock from the whole experience of what had just happened, but he, his first words were, wow, that was fast. Like my prayers are answered so fast. And that's the miracles, right? Like it's like the
Yeah.
speed at which miracles can happen for that man and for anybody. Like I think that's another, thing that we're all kind of taking away from this. It's like
And just coming together,
asking,
like,
yeah, and not even
and
asking for help, like just
yeah,
like mentioning a need. Your needs can be met just like that. Like,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and that was super beautiful. And she did get a shower so she could share it, right? So
That's
a lot,
right. She got candy for her grandchild too,
that's right.
right?
The
Oh my
candy
gosh.
was a huge
That
hit.
was a
So
huge hit. It's like, close to Halloween. So we brought Halloween candy thanks to Natasha and Randy. And man, these people would say, like, I don't need anything, but my grandchild would love that candy,
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Or
And
the young woman in Swananoa.
yeah, so one of our friends, she lives in this beautiful apartment in this beautiful, gorgeous building in Black Mountain. Intuitively, right? Because a lot of people were like, these people were warned and they had an evacuation. That's not true, right? So intuitively, she was like, I gotta get out of here. So she jumps in her car and she's trying to go to Kim's house, like our friend Kim. She can't get there. So she tries to go to Marion Worst's place and she couldn't get there. So she sat in a parking lot for 3 hours waiting for the water to subside so she could get to safety. So her place got all flooded out. So we showed up, right, to see how can we help. And and we're
And
sitting.
there's like
Oh,
a house from across the street had like lifted up off of the foundation and like slammed into a tree right in front of her house. The backyard looked like just piles of mud. It was, yeah,
yeah,
there
these are
was
just words to
water damage everywhere.
yeah,
Like,
it's like to be there, to experience it, right? And we didn't even take pictures because it just felt
no.
so disrespectful. So we did not do that. But like, but I remember I'm talking to the owner of the property, and she's originally from like where we are in Florida. So we were like hitting it off, and she was like, again, I'll just take a couple of pieces of candy, right? Just a couple, right? So she's holding her little couple pieces of candy, and I'm looking at the building because it's gorgeous. And I'm like, this place is so beautiful. And then I like laughed and I'm like, it's really messed
Yeah,
up, but like it's beautiful and you could still feel the
yeah,
magic.
yeah,
The energy is still there. And it was so gorgeous. And then we wind up meeting her daughter, and she took the entire bag of candy and she was so excited to share it with her friends because it's like some normalcy, right? In a chaotic, like, time.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that
She's
was really
covered in
cool.
mud and had her cute little braid pigtails, and she was, probably 17 or so. And she came around the corner and found out we had candy. Her eyes were like
Yeah.
glistening and twinkling, and her smile was so big, and she couldn't wait to share it. And it's like a bag of candy, right? That's not a need. And I think, we hesitated. I didn't hesitate about the candy. My whole thing was like, what can we bring that will comfort these folks? And like candy is always on my list. So, but it was like something out of the ordinary. I don't think anyone had offered yet. There's like, do you have water? Do you have food?
Yeah.
Do you have shelter? Like those were the main important things at that moment. But then there was this like a bag of candy. It like kind of blew her mind, and it was just so cool. It was so cool to see her reaction, and
Yeah.
so grateful that we had that to offer. Even the other lady with the M&Ms.
Oh, totally. Yeah. The one lady in Old Fort. And just to see people's faces like light up and they were like, oh my God, that was really super
Yeah,
cool. Super
yeah,
cool. But like really like, the whole thing, guys, is it's all about uniting and coming together. And I truly believe in, there's like a large group of us now. It's like we're shifting into a new paradigm. And this paradigm is based on love. Not that life is perfect, because it's not, but it's always coming back together. And to see this community, come together in a time of need, it's such a beautiful story to kind of like share with everybody because this can be everywhere.
everywhere.
And I'm sure it's not just Western North Carolina. We're just bringing you like our personal experience because that's all we can do.
Yeah, yeah. I think what I leave this talk, this moment with is like, I, yeah, I can't even put it to words, right? My heart is so full of grief, full of sadness, full of joy, full of possibility, full of hope. And, you know, I guess like any message that I would want to share that I learned from this is like show up. Just show up. Whatever that means to you. It's beautiful seeing some like men that know women too, that know how to use chainsaws. Like get out there, use your chainsaws, help your neighbors, right? Like people that know how to cook. If you have the resources and the food and the electricity, cook, give it away. If you have, whatever, if you have anything to share, like show up. And, if that's doing, sound healing or offering coaching or whatever it is, like show up. Because if each of us is doing that for our own individual communities, like there is transformation that needs and wants to happen, and it's like bubbling at the surface. Like all we have to do is show up and it starts to transform.
That's beautiful.
It's
And I love
my
you so much. And I'm
two
so
cents.
grateful to be on this journey with you.
It's great. Love you so much. I'm so grateful too to the all of the people who have donated, and thank you for that. And if you want to continue to donate, we're going back. This effort is ongoing. Many people are still without homes and resources, and there's tons of ways you can still continue to give. So if you would like to give, please do. You know, we can drop a link or something in the, I don't
Yeah, I think
know
wasn't
how
Chris-
this works.
yeah, I think sorry, I've been crying. I have to like wipe my nose because it's
I know.
I'm like so gross. I'm so sorry. But so our friend Christine, she works at this amazing eyeglass place. And just imagine, so Rowan is legally blind. I don't know how many people know that, but without her contacts, she would not be able to see. They are donating contacts to everybody who lost their contacts, right? And it's just like, you know, things we truly, truly need and depend on. So maybe we can share Christine's link down in the bottom.
Yeah.
That's because it's going directly to people.
Yeah,
Um,
Christine, now that you brought up Christine, I just want to share a quick shout out about Christine. So Christine, so during when this all happened, through mutual friends, and Asheville and the surrounding areas are really close knit. We've been sharing that all along. But like a lot of people are yoga teachers. There used to be a joke there, right? Like if you trip and fall, you're gonna fall into a church or a yoga studio. Like it's just the way it is. So of course, everyone, I like care about everyone, but we're really connected as a community around the yoga teachers. And I found out about a yoga teacher that was trapped. She was just outside of Black Mountain, Swannanoa area, trapped on the mountain, in a home with, she's an elder with four other elders, I believe, and a couple of cats, and running very low on resources. And they were unable to get out. And so we didn't hear from her. Actually, we didn't know if she had gotten out or wasn't. We didn't know anything. So I actually filed a missing persons report from Florida for her because I had internet and all the resources to kind of do some things from here. So we don't hear from her. We don't hear from her. We don't hear from her. And I hear from Christine. If anyone needs me to get out and find people, let me know. My guy and I are resourced. We have tools. We can do it. So here's this woman and her guy, and they're like hacking through. They got 3 miles down into the woods down a road and get there, and the road is completely collapsed. I mean, just a gully. Like there was nothing. She couldn't get any further than there. So she let me know, like, she sent me a video. This is as far as I could get. This is a woman who I went to college with, but she works at this eyeglass place. Like she's not a professional like rescuer. She just like is out there serving in whatever way she can. And her guy is the guy who has the sign on the door, like, if you're hungry or thirsty, come on into my gorgeous apartment. Like I have this beautiful loft in downtown Asheville, and it's just open to you too. So like this is the heart of people, right? And then this GoFundMe that she has set up with her employer is like, if I didn't, it's one of my greatest fears in life is not being able to see, because if I didn't have contacts or glasses, I wouldn't be able to function in the world at all. And it's not even if like I didn't have them, like what if I couldn't afford them, right? Because a lot of people have lost their jobs, they're artists, or their restaurants got swept away, or they're damaged, or there's just a lot of like economic uncertainty right now. Buying contacts is a huge expense. And so this GoFundMe is, going to support people who either lost their glasses or their contacts, which is a really real thing when you're in like survival mode, or you just can't afford them right now. So like it's awesome. And she's just this like powerhouse of a lady who was just like, we were born for these times, like go with the chainsaws or whatever she was doing out there. I love her so much, and so
and
much of that, yeah.
And just to go back, so the yoga lady, right?
Oh yeah.
Eventually, because
Yeah, sorry.
you were calling multiple times a day, right? To get helicopter rescue to get
Yeah,
into Swananoa to bring supplies or get her out.
yeah.
And you were so persistent. And then
The mules are
and
what brought her the
the
supplies.
mules brought her supplies, right?
Hmm. Yep.
And then eventually she was rescued. Do you want to share when the Coast Guard called you?
Oh gosh, it was like one of the hardest conversations I think I've ever had in my life. So the Coast Guard, an investigator of the Coast Guard called and said, you know, you filed this missing persons report. We're just following up. Can you confirm that you've received word from her that she's safe or she's alive or anything? And I said, indirectly, I can. Can I call you back in just a couple of minutes? I'm going to call her directly with my own phone and speak to her with my own ears and voice and see if I can catch her. And he said, sure, you can call me back. So I called her. This is the first time I've ever really talked. You know, I've never met her before. We're just both yoga teachers. Like, I don't know. And so we had like a beautiful, like, oh my God, it's so nice to meet you over the phone. Heard her voice with my own voice. Of course, I started bawling. Um, hang up the phone, call the investigator back from the Coast Guard, and he got choked up. And he said, uh, this is a really hard day because we've shifted efforts from recovery, I mean, from rescue to recovery. And like he was like, I'm so happy. I'm so happy that I can start. It was like 7 o'clock in the morning when he called. So happy to start my day with a positive story and a good outcome. And thank you. And there were a lot of other things that were said in that conversation, but it's really hard to talk about. So I probably should just stop there. Am I missing something that,
No. And I
yeah,
think like, it's just like we just can never give up.
never. The mules,
I know
like,
those meals were
like
awesome.
the
They
mules
were
were like
awesome.
donkeys brought oxygen and like water and food. And I mean, these folks, like the mules, God bless the mules, you know?
Yep.
And the dogs, the horses and the animals. And I mean, it's such a humanitarian thing, right? Like the people, of course, we love and care about these creatures, amazing creatures.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I
It's
had forgotten about that. Think so that's the thing too. I feel like, you know, it's like everything happened yesterday and everything happened a month ago. Like I can't tell time right now.
I can't tell time. Like I like we didn't even know like what time it was. And even driving home from our trip, it was like Rowan says to me, "Oh, honey, 26 is coming up." And I'm like, babe, we've been on Route 26 for over 3 hours. Like, we're getting on 95 soon. Like,
Oh
that's
my
kind of
gosh.
like the space that we were in. And, again, it's just like, this is a process, but we're not living it every single day. So,
Yeah.
if you're hearing this and if you need anything, reach out to us directly. Like, my email address is digitalcoach@protonmail.com. Babe, you want to share your email address with everybody? Maybe even like your website.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I'll put it in the description too.
Yeah, we can drop it in the description. Yeah, something that I was inspired to do was to create a free offering for anyone that was affected by um, Helene, and then Milton came through. So this is not going to apply to anyone who was affected by either hurricane, but I was inspired to start a free offering of sound healing. It's through Zoom, so you can do it from your home, and it's just a what I know is medicine for me. I mean, ever since we got back, I've just been drumming and bringing myself back into myself through sound. And I know that it's a really important thing. I'm working with Christine Stevens, who is a sound therapist and a drummer, very popular. Many of you probably know who she is. And she's coordinating with me to do a protocol that she used during COVID for recovery. And so I feel really honored that I get to work with her. And she's put me in touch with Joshua Leeds, who is this amazing sound healer, who actually ironically lives in Asheville and had to evacuate, so we haven't had a chance to connect yet. But anyway, long story short, I'd be happy to put my website, that offering, in the description. It's called the Sound Sanctuary. And you can see here, if you're watching, Rhythms and Rest next to my name. So my gmail.com email is rhythmsandrest@gmail.com.
Love it. Love it. Well, thank
Thanks.
you so much, honey. I know we've been struggling doing this, but I feel this is something like, you know, we needed to share our story.
Yeah, and thank everyone, because you guys really made this possible for us. You know, because of
Absolutely.
you, we had some cash in our hand that we could buy the diapers, buy the Pedialyte for this young man, or, you know, help someone fill their gas tank, or buy some gas to deliver to them, or, you know, because of you, we were able to do so much more than we could have done alone. So thank you.
Yeah. That was so super sweet because when we were filling up the gas cans, we have a truck, so it's like someone who has like a tiny car to put like a smelly gas can in there.
Yeah.
It worked out really, really well.
Yeah.
So as a
Yeah, and
side
like,
note,
you know, delivering diesel to people who needed it for their equipment, you know, like those that equipment was running because of you. Thank you.
yeah. So we really appreciate everybody. Thank you for being so generous. And yeah, we'll definitely be regrouping and heading back up to Western North Carolina sometime soon. So keep in touch. And you know what we say, baby. Until next time,
We do. We say hodl on,
huddle
friends.
on,
Hodl on.
everybody. Crypto's next. So stay tuned. We're getting back to crypto.
Hodl on, friends.
Huddle on.